So this is the Samsung Galaxy A56 and we compared it against the 16E, but today we're going to take a look at it against the Nothing Phone 3A and we're going to see which one comes out on top in this speed test. So what is up guys, Nick here helping you to master your technology. Let's go ahead and begin with a boot up test between both of these in 3, 2, go and see which one can get there first. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing for more content like this as well as other comparisons and reviews. I'd love to have you around for future videos, but seeing which one can boot up first, it does look like maybe the Samsung in the lead. We'll see what happens here though. We're looking at a 7S Gen 3 on the right. No, the Nothing Phone says shut up Nick, not today. 7S Gen 3 on the right, 12 gigabytes of RAM on the right, 8 gigabytes of RAM on the left. And we do have ourselves Exynos 1580 on here, Samsung chip. So Snapdragon versus Samsung, but this is going to be a win to the Nothing Phone 3A when it comes to turning on. This is a budget Snapdragon though, so this is not our 8 Elite. So keep that in mind. So both of these do unlock basically the same. They both do use fingerprint sensors here at the bottom of the screens. And it looks like the Nothing Phone got in there quicker. You can see right here. Yeah, it looked like I missed on the A56. Let me do this again. 3, 2, go. Yeah, the Nothing Phone actually has a faster unlocking looking speed. This is a pretty good comparison because both of these are similar sizes. Nothing gives you that unique looking feel and design. Plastic frame though, and kind of like a cheaper feel, but definitely a different, very unique look. Also, I like the button placement better on the Nothing Phone 3A. You could see it's much lower. It's so high on the Galaxy A56, but the A56 does have a glass back, aluminum build. Kind of feels more like an older flagship with the glass build, but overall metal kind of feel. So you could pick and choose. You want unique or do you want like a nicer feel in the hand? I'd rather drop the 3A if I was going to drop a phone because it's probably going to survive a bit better due to its frame. So really it's up to you. Both of them are pretty decent, but the Nothing Phone definitely unlocks a little bit quicker. Now when generally going through the software, it's nice that both of these do give you adaptive refresh rates. However, One UI 7 is also improving even budget phones when it comes to just navigating the general user interface. I don't care if you're in the control area, you're over here in the app area, it doesn't matter where you're at. You know, scrolling is quite nice here with the adaptive refresh, even on phones like the Galaxy A56, which is very nice. Now, Nothing Phone is very impressive when it comes to giving you something unique. Nobody really has a look like them out there right now. Now, not everybody's on board with this. Some people really don't like the look, but a lot of people do. And it's why this brand is continuing to succeed. You could see the categorization within apps, but we do have adaptive refresh on here as well. And because Nothing OS feels a little bit lighter, it definitely kind of scrolls pretty fast and snappy. I actually feel like generally going through its software feels a little bit snappier than One UI over here, at least on the A series phone over here. So this phone I would say generally feels a little quicker. All right, so here we're at the app test. Everything is closed off for both. And if you're wondering what is up with those icons, I don't like that, look, it's just all the same color. Like you can change that. You can actually just go here, customization. You can also go to icon pack and just go to default if you like it more like that. But I tend to leave it on the Nothing pack just because we're talking about a Nothing phone. Let's go into calendar on both. And you've seen that they did it about the same. For some reason, this phone was in the landscape mode, but they did it about the same. Let me go ahead and make sure that that auto rotate is turned off there. Let's go and swipe out, and you could see both pretty nice animations. Let's head into the alarms. You'll see, I think Samsung maybe, and we'll go over here to timers, stopwatch, but you just have to decide which one do you like better in terms of the software. Let's go into calculator. That looked faster on the Samsung. We'll go into Instagram. And that one was definitely faster on the Samsung. Samsung on that one. Generally, I tend to prefer the look of the Nothing Phone. I feel like it looks pretty polished. Just very consistent. The One UI on the A56 also pretty polished. Let's swipe up out of here. But I'm just kind of used to it. I think I like the uniqueness of the Nothing Phone, especially in this segment. It's just like a nice, different feel for the budget devices. You can see right there, that was faster on a Nothing phone. When scrolling through, you're going to get a similar experience, although I'm seeing that the Nothing phone's body does look a little bit taller. It tends to feel like a little bit of a larger phone to me. Over here, I think the display is slightly bigger, like 6.77 inches. It's closer to 6.8. This one's 6.7 on the A56. So if you want the more easier to hold phone, that's going to be the A56. Both of them OLED displays though, so that's good. When we go over here to games, why did it swipe out? I thought I clicked games. So we swipe over here. Pretty good on both. So I'm seeing very, very close and similar performance in terms of just day-to-day so far. So let's head into X now, and we'll go over here and see what happens. And that was faster on the left. Let's hit the profile pages here. Faster on the right, and a little bit choppier scrolling weirdly on the A56. Let's go into Amazon here on both phones, and we're getting the spring sale thing pop up, but they would have been similar. So let's go ahead and do that again. Watch it come on the A56 now. We'll go to Amazon, and yeah, we're still faster on the A56. Had a little hiccup there. Let's go into YouTube, and we're gonna go over here to, hold on, let's go to trending here, and I'm gonna go to music. Scroll down, you could see a good experience on both of them here. Of course, the bezels are thicker on both these phones than some other phones, but they're more uniform on the Nothing phone. They don't look out of place. This one is bigger. This bezel is bigger than the top one on the A56. So I would say the look, hold on, I just clicked the video. I would say the look of the Nothing phone's front looks more symmetrical. Let's go into movies, and we'll swipe through, and when we swipe out, Nothing phone's animation looked a little quicker there. Let's go into Groupon, and we're gonna just go over here, continue as a guest. So we had a little pop-up. So let's just go ahead. If that happens, I just usually redo them. So let's go ahead and redo it here. So you see, still faster on the Samsung. That Exynos 1580 isn't bad so far. It seems to be performing similar to the Snapdragon 7S Gen 3. So Samsung didn't throw a horrible CPU in there. It's just not going to be, obviously, I mean, you got to stop thinking about it like, oh, I could just get a Snapdragon 8. Like, if you want a higher end phone, just buy one. Like, you kind of got to know what you're coming into here. You're buying this to save money, really. You're not buying it to say I have the fastest chip. If that's the case, don't even entertain either of these phones. Go for a higher end device. These are not targeting that specific buyer. So let's go ahead and swipe up out of here. We'll go into Subway Surfers, and you'll see game mode triggered, and the Samsung going to win this one. So Samsung there. So far, Samsung's One UI, or just the phone in general, seems to be loading some of this stuff a little quicker to me. Let's go into Brawl Stars, and we'll see what happens here. Brawl Stars popping open first there on the, which one's it going to be? It's the Samsung. So the Samsung wins that one out as well. So this is why I say I want to see the Nothing phone flagship performer. I just want to see how fast it can be. You can see right here that the Samsung won that one as well. We'll hit Race to Sun. And looks like we're just a hair quicker there on the Samsung again. Let's go into Call of Duty and see if we get any differences here. Sometimes this game be downloaded resources, so we'll see if that happens. But so far, the Samsung in the lead. And updating here. Yep, so we're going to go ahead and close out Call of Duty here and rerun this. As the Nothing phone was downloading resources, even though I'd be testing these before, then I get in the app test and it starts to download more stuff. So it happens sometimes. But we'll see which one can actually launch this first. Again, neither one of these are going to be my pick or recommendation for if you want to play these games regularly, just go with something like a 13R that has more performance than this. If you want to save money still, but still have good performance. But the Nothing phone did win this one out. When in the game, you have a bigger display on the right. Both have similar size batteries. Let's go into Free Fire and see which one can do this first. But don't get it wrong. I'm not saying these won't play these games. They will. But if you're playing in like a multiplayer lobby and somebody else has a flagship phone, their performance-oriented device could be the difference between you losing or winning that matchup. So, and it's legit. Like, I tried playing the A56 against other people. They were wrecking. They were just absolutely wrecking. So basically, I lost by like 20 points. So definitely in the Call of Duty. So definitely, I would say that holds true. Let's go into 3D Mark, and that was faster on the left. And how about Geekbench 6? And that was faster on the left. And Speed Test Net, faster on the right. And we'll go into InShot, and faster on the left. So Samsung held its own. Nothing. These phones to me felt about the same. Honestly, the Samsung had maybe slightly quicker launch speeds on a lot of these apps, but overall, I do think the Samsung was loading a little bit more quicker. So take it for what it is, but it was very, very close here. So these phones are definitely neck and neck. It's just going to be down to the unique feel, or do you want this Samsung experience, the ecosystem, for less money? That's really what it's going to be down to. But I will say nothing does support this phone much better or much frequently than Samsung. Although Samsung is promising like about 6 years of major OS, this is only 3 years of major OS. But early on, they do tend to push out a lot of updates for these nothing phones. So take the pros and cons, weigh them out, and decide which one is going to be better for you. All right, so let's do some RAM management now. We do have 8 gigabytes of RAM on here. You can get this with 12 gigs, and I understand I probably should have picked that one up, but it's not going to make a terrible difference here between these two phones. You can see the Samsung holding everything pretty decent. No real major issues, just a little bit of a blinking, but I'm not really upset with this due to the price of this phone. I would expect everything to be reloading at this price, and it's really not. So I am actually pretty happy with this. And even though this is that was reloading the feed, even though this is their entry level, well, not entry level, but their mid-ranger budget phone, this is probably more their budget. Mid-ranger probably FE. But if we go over here, you can still do your split screen. It can handle the pop views in the split screen. So this is still the multitasking beast. Let's go ahead and take a look now at the Nothing Phone 3A. Also similar, or if not the exact same performance as the 3A Pro on this phone right here. You can see nicer looking going through the apps here for sure. They're not blinking as much. Although you can see a little choppiness still. Still, you can definitely, in this area, you can definitely see a difference between these and flagship phones. You can see that right there. It just stutters a little bit. And people say, well, how much does this matter? It's not like you're going to go through all these random apps in day to day. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm showing here is that when you're like, let's say you have an app open, hold on. Let's say you got an app open like this, and you kind of like go through here. Sometimes you see that little pause. This is where flagship phones will have a little bit better performance. We'll go over here to Play Store. I don't know if I open X, News, Instagram, Calculator, Clock, and Calendar. I would say on this area, the Nothing Phone actually performed better. I like this more in RAM management. This did better. That's likely due to its 12 gigabytes of RAM, but I also think it's related to its just the way Nothing does its animations. So that's something to be said as well. But if we go ahead and look at About Phone right here, again, this is my 12 gigabyte of RAM. And you do have RAM Plus on this phone and RAM Booster on this phone. This also 256 gig storage. That's a 128. So that could be affecting our results here as well. So here we go. We have 1224 on the overall score for the Galaxy A54 or A56, excuse me. 7.33 FPS on the average frame rate, 6.3 on the Nothing Phone. So the Nothing Phone actually did worse in the Wildlife Extreme, meaning its GPU might be a little bit worse than that of the Samsung over there. So Samsung probably going to be your winner for gaming. Let's go ahead and take a look at Geekbench. And you can see right here, we do have 4 cores at 1.95 gigahertz, 3 at 2.6, and 1 at 2.91. Over here, if you compare that, our 3 cores at 2.4, so that's a little bit lower, and its third cluster is also clock speed a little bit lower, 2.5 and 1.8. So basically every cluster on the Nothing Phone is actually clocked speed a little bit lower. So that's the good thing about Samsung Exynos is that they can overclock it because it's their chip. So definitely, that could be contributing to the higher 3D Mark scores over here on the. And the final scores here for Geekbench also show better scores on the Samsung, and that could be contributing to why during our actual app test, the Samsung seemed to be launching a few things faster. Although I did call it pretty close. It is pretty close. If you look at the single core, it's 200 points better on the left, and the multi-core 500 points on the left. But the 7S Gen 3, that's why I say just don't be fooled by Snapdragon. That's not their powerful Snapdragon. It loses out here on the Nothing phone to the Galaxy A56. So you don't have to sleep on Exynos for everything. This is doing pretty good over here. All right, so let's go ahead and run a quick Wi-Fi speed test on both. We'll start over here for the Nothing phone 3A. Let me go ahead and get this on the same server before we do the next test. And we'll get the Sammy in here. And you'll see 438 down, going for an even higher upload. Let's see, 40, 41. Yes. Getting close to 42. We're gonna clock out at 41. Let's see what happens here for the Samsung. So Samsung is showing worse speed so far, but can it catch up? It doesn't look like it's going to do so. This is the same server, so it's a little bit weird. And you'll see that I wouldn't expect that, but you'll see the upload's about the same. Nothing's going to take it here for the download, but about the same on the upload. But you do have with the Samsung, depending on if you get the global version, you might have better band support. But it depends on where you're at. The Nothing phone's going to work better in, I think, the UK for sure than the US. Samsung's going to work better. You just got to check the bands because they don't have all the bands for every single country, these phones. So go ahead and check that out before you make a purchase decision. Make sure it supports your carrier, your network. But generally, both of these do very good in their Wi-Fi performance. Let's go ahead and wrap this up with a quick camera test. I'll bring in my Galaxy Watch Ultra here for the subject matter. Let's go ahead and hit the camera in 3, 2, go. And you see the Samsung took it there. Now, both of these phones are a bit slow when it comes to launching the cameras. So that's one thing a lot of people don't talk about with these mid-rangers. They can be a little bit slow when it comes to launching camera. I don't like that. It could make you miss a moment, but shutter speed, pretty close, not a massive difference. Zooming can stutter a bit more. You see, look at that chop. You could see that chop there on the zooming. That's something to note when getting a budget phone. You could see right here, same affair for the Nothing phone. Although I would say, yeah, both of them are choppy here. So they can zoom and do all that stuff, but they're just not super fast when going through those lenses like our top tier devices. So wrapping it up, I do think the Samsung takes the W. I think it's slightly quicker here, but it's only a small amount. The Nothing phone still offers tremendous value if you want to go ahead and take the leap on this one. But overall, I do think both of these phones in this segment should get a little faster. They don't have to be flagship faster, but they're still a little bit choppy, a little bit too slow for my liking personally. I do think that even the buyer of this might notice a little bit of stutter and lag here and there. So I would like to see as we go forward for them to improve the performance on these phones. Because at $400, they're not like super cheap. So they do need to be a little bit quicker in my experience. But overall, they're not bad. They're still tremendous values. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And have a great Sunday. I will catch you all in the very next episode. Nick here. Be sure to be well. And peace.